and welcome to another installment of Out Loud, the video series. I am your host, Kenny Fitz, and joining me today, my next door neighbor, not really, but we're in the same location, so we'll say that. We'll pretend like we share a backyard. Leanne Hoffman. Leanne, welcome to Out Loud.
Thanks for having me. Happy
Uh,
to be here.
Listen, I'm happy to have you here because you have so much great new music out right now. Even though it's only the two singles are out, it
Mhm.
seems like there's an energy around it that seems like there's more, and I'm assuming that's because more will be coming. So not to put too much pressure on. You started off with Portuguese Tarts. That was the first single, and now we have Pity Party.
Mhm.
And I think both are brilliant, but as I've already said to you, uh, Pity Party has been in my head for so long, and it has been stuck in my head. That chorus is crazy. It's so good. And tell us about it. Tell us about the song, where it came from. I feel that there's a story because if you read the lyrics, you listen to the song, you know that there was something that went down there. Tell us about it. Give us the backstory of it.
Um, well, I guess Pity Party kind of started like a an extended metaphor, actually. Before there was a story behind it, it was sort of a self prompt. So I actually took, the Leslie Gore song, You Can Cry, It's My Party and I Can Cry If I Want to.
Yep.
It came from that kind of. But I wanted to take the metaphor as far as I could take it. And I often don't write that way. Um, and it was difficult to do after I wrote the first verse and the chorus. I found it really difficult to continue the metaphor, honestly. So the song was a challenge, and it's really different from anything I've written before. But I loved how kind of petty it feels, and I really like how the production turned out, and it's just fun. And I don't have a lot of, I mean, on this project, it's different, but in the past, I haven't really written just for fun. Like ever, it's usually been for like an emotional, like necessity of some sort. And this song didn't really have a necessity at all. And then as I started writing it, obviously I can conjure up people or things that inspire the anger. um and it's really just about people like that love to feel down, love to like be down and feel down and bring everyone else down. The kind of people that seem to like sort of get off with people's misery a little bit. um
I'm familiar.
and yeah, and I feel like I often let that get to me, or I make it my job to like pull them out of it. And so this song was sort of a like like combating that feeling. And I'm not really the song. I was fearful that the song would make me seem callous or something, and I'm really quite emotionally like not weak but like fragile, I would say. So I don't actually want people to not feel their feelings, but in this case, I it was kind of coming from a place of being fed up at negativity, I think.
I get that though. I got that from the song. And I think if it resonates with people, I think that that's why it does resonate because I think we've all been there. We've all had those folks around us when even if they're drowning or they're kind of, going down the rabbit hole of negativity, we don't want them to suffer. But at
No.
the same time, it can be emotionally taxing on those who are around them. And it's kind of like, okay, it gets to that almost snapping point where it's like you have to either take charge of them or they have to take charge of themselves or something. You get to that kind of frustration. So I get that. I never ever thought about it in it like seeming like it was callous or anything like that.
That's good.
It was more like that. But yeah, come on. We've got to do something here.
Right.
It comes on the heels of Portuguese
Mm.
and it's like together they're such great songs. it's been a few years since you've had releases.
Yeah.
What I would say is that there has been a shift, definitely. The time that you took writing, um, you've obviously played in some different areas in terms of like thinking about what you want your music to sound like or where you were going as an artist. How was that time, not releasing spent for you? Like coming off of an album, which can sometimes be really, taxing itself, just trying to get it out there and get it done. What did you learn, I guess, from the album to get you to here? And what conscious decisions did you make as you were making these songs, or did they just kind of come about organically?
That's a nice question.
Here's 50 questions in one that I will throw at you, so that you can go like, I'm not sure what he asked.
No, that's a good question. I think that it's true. I mean, releasing something and then the not that anything's ever really over because it lives on in the world, it lives on the internet and out there forever. Um, but I think after the last record, I thought, I mean, I didn't really think anything immediately. But I've always really loved pop music, like top 40 pop music, and that's kind of the thing that I would do my most of my daydreaming to and about is like the kind of music that makes me want to dance or like makes me feel something that is really universal or empowers me if I'm like going to something social or like going on a date or like doing something that requires emotional sort of fortitude. I feel like pop music has always sort of been there for me. And I haven't always really had the tools to write pop music. I think that my natural tendency is to sort of write in like a journal, like entry form, which I also love doing. And that's kind of how my last record came to be. But this album that is coming actually came from a different project where, and I don't know if I guess I haven't really talked about this too much yet because I haven't announced it, but um, I wrote a poem every day for a year,
Hmm.
and that those poems I got like funding to make them into songs. And so when I realized I was going to make this record based on these poems, I thought, oh, how can I like make like take this type of art form, this poetry that's like so insular and personal and make it into this like really universal thing. And I thought pop music is totally that. Pop music is so universal. Everyone's listening. Everyone like hears it whether they want to or not. And how can I take these really personal words that are already written and make them more accessible? So every song on this upcoming record is from these sets of poems, and I'm also releasing a book with the album of all the poems. So there are multiple things coming. There's still more singles coming, but all of these songs are direct translations of poems. And so that's what happened. It's a lot. That's why it's taken so long, is because it took a long time to write, to like find how the poems fit into lyrics, because most of them I didn't change at all. I just took them and found ways to sing them in like a pop form. And then the production also, it's my first time co-producing my own music, and all of that took a long time. And the book, obviously, like it all takes forever. And I wanted it to be right. I wanted it to look good and feel good, and that's what happened.
Wow.
That's what took so long.
So that's exciting. What an
Yeah,
exciting project to be able to kind of encapsulate so much of what you were working on in so many different formats.
yeah,
Poems as themselves, then translated into music, but a book of them at the same time. And I do also have to say, I appreciate the fact that both songs that you have released have had music videos, because I love music videos and I like what you're doing with your music videos. Your music videos, and I don't know how much, they cost, because video costs, I know that, but
yeah.
you've created music videos that are accessible for other artists. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is they look great, They work great with the music, but they didn't have to be an extravagant production, an
Mm,
over the top production that makes it feel to another artist that, oh my God, I could never do something like that. You can
right.
see how you would be able to pull it together and be really smart with video. I love Portuguese tarts and the cake, and
Mm.
when you get into that, which I'm sure was fun to make, and I don't know how many cakes you had to go through, but
A lot, a lot.
but it's, I just think that it's smart work with your music, but to now know that there's so much together there that's coming, that's
Mhm.
exciting. Tax,
Yeah.
I keep using the word taxing.
Yeah.
Now it really gives it a bit of an understanding as to how much was going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. And I think it's nice to talk about it because it's easy to for me myself to forget, but also for it to get lost in translation because people only see the packaged thing. So, all of the stuff goes on behind the scenes, and then what people see is the single artwork for a song. And you know it's nice to get to talk about it and how everything fits together. And obviously I'll be doing more of that because it's just the beginning of the project. But it is nice, it's really nice to get the opportunity to talk about how much work and thought went into it.
I think that's
um
brilliant, to be honest. There's a British artist over in London. Her name is Rooks,
okay.
and she did an album, but she did a video for each song in terms of like the behind the scenes about understanding why she was putting, the music together the way that she was and how she was crafting it. And it became this, before the album was released, it became this video series of just her, documenting creating this album, which was really smart, because at the end when you got the package and you got the full album, it's like, oh my God, I have so much understanding as to what went into this and what she was thinking at the time, that it just
Mm.
gave more layers to the album. And that's what every artist wants, is for
Yeah,
their craft to, you know be, to create their craft, but also for it to be able to be explored in different ways. You've kind of
totally. And be understood, or like, no one, you can't control how it's received. But I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I personally feel like the best feeling is feeling like it's being received at all, like it's being like understood or digested, not just like taken in and regurgitated or something. Like it's the best to hear people's opinions and feedback and how it impacted them, or what it made them think of, or that's the best part about making stuff, I think.
I kind of going back to when I was in university and I didn't, have an English degree. Um, Looking at that and thinking about, I really wish things like that kind of had existed at the time, because it would have been really great to be able to understand poetry with through a music lens as well as through the written lens.
Yeah.
You suddenly become way more aware of what was being said, and you also
Yeah.
get a much better understanding of the artist and where they're headed and what they're talking about, and where it all kind of comes from. So who knows, maybe you will become a
Hmm.
course down the road and in an English class. That stranger
Wow.
things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
Wow. A girl can dream.
That's right. That's right. Uh,
Yeah.
so these two songs were, and you did mention like this package. How many singles do you think will be off this album? Have you laid that out, or do you lay that out, or do you kind of go like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about how many singles, and I think that maybe I'll just we'll let it lie for a bit, and it's like if I want to put another one out, I will.
Well, I mean, at this point, it is planned. It, I personally don't. I mean, I have a team of people that help with those things, and I don't necessarily think I would be able to make those decisions on. I mean, I would make them, but they wouldn't be based on anything other than my own opinion. So, other people, a label and publicists, kind of help with those decisions. But there are, yeah, more singles. We're halfway through the singles.
Okay.
Um, and that's not something, yeah, I think about ahead of time. I kind of just I wrote the songs and as they came, and then just we look at them as sort of a package and decide then. Um, so it's a little bit out of my hands, which is nice. Not that I don't have control, but just that I don't necessarily want to be thinking about that stuff as much as I want to be thinking about the creative stuff.
That's
Um,
fair. That's fair. I
yeah,
think that, this is a day and age of the do-it-yourself artist, which is
totally.
really complicated for artists because they do want to be able to just kind of concentrate on the art and the creative side of it and what they're pulling together. And because of funding, because of challenges, because I mean we can always blame everything on COVID because that's what we do these days. But
Yeah.
it is part of the equation. So many artists are having to take hold of a lot of that stuff themselves, which can be challenging. It can probably ruin the process of creating for the artist. And I'm sure you probably have experienced pieces like that.
Yeah.
You probably have friends who are experiencing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could complain. I don't want to because I do it enough in my regular day life, but I could complain about being a creative person until, I don't know, the cows come home, if that's the thing people still say. But like, it's so hard. It just gets harder, I think. I mean, there's so much to navigate, and yeah, splitting your time between like business brain and art brain, and then I don't know, it's just it's overwhelming. And it's not like again, it's not seen, it's not transparent. So we're trying to make things look shiny and good because you do want people to just enjoy the finished product, but because of that, they don't see necessarily how much work goes into it, and it's also not something that's valued like being a doctor is.
Hmm.
No, it's not something that you don't trade your art for money. It's not like a good or a service. It is, but it's not considered that way. So there's just so much work involved, and it's, I mean, it's cheese. I know people are always like, you have to do it for yourself. And I've said this before, but it's like I can't just do it for me because I can't survive off of good vibes. Like I
Yeah.
can't, I need, it needs to lead somewhere. Otherwise, none of us would do it.
I think
And
that people
that's hard.
mistake sometimes. I think from an audience standpoint, I think sometimes they forget that there is a business side to it, that the
Mhm.
artist also has to embrace and understand, and there's pieces of it that they have to be involved in, which is difficult for creatives sometimes because it's not creative work.
Yeah.
So it really is brain switching a lot of the times, which can impact even the enjoyment of it all. So I think that sometimes people miss that piece of it, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because it's really about thinking as the whole, the artist as a whole is more than
Mhm.
just the good vibes, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
The so we just recently experienced the ECMAs here in
Yes.
Halifax.
We
It's
did.
ECMA time. What's happening for you coming up performance wise?
Great question. I haven't announced any shows yet, but I do have a collection of shows coming up, and that'll be coming out when my album comes
Okay.
out. But there are quite a few quite a few things coming. Something in Halifax, obviously, for the release, and there'll be a book launch as well. So there is stuff coming, and probably not probably, definitely a whole different form, a whole different live show than previously, which I'm really excited about. Um,
That's
because
exciting.
yeah,
Um,
it is.
are you looking at going post Nova Scotia or just staying to Nova Scotia for the time being?
I'll be leaving Nova Scotia.
Oh,
Yeah, there'll be some shows outside of the Maritimes and in other maritime provinces. Um, Yeah.
I mean, artists love to perform their music, but it can be a little rattling too. It definitely
Yeah.
can be a little rattling.
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming you're comfortable on stage, but what parts of the stage are you give you the most discomfort?
Honestly, I haven't been comfortable on stage. And I've thought about this a lot, especially with this release, because with previous releases, um, my whole live show has been centered around like just being who I am. So, I'm sitting at a piano and I'm playing these songs and I'm telling stories about my real life, and it's really intimate, and that has come with such a high amount of stress because if I'm feeling nervous or I'm in a bad mood or something has happened or I'm tired, there's nothing for me to like put on and like wear as a performer to kind of get out of that. And it feels really vulnerable in a way that is so depleting, like really, really depleting. And while I do enjoy being who I am, I think this release is offering sort of a type of performance that is outside of myself a little bit. Like I get to put on something and play around with like the visual aspects and the theatrical aspects and things that I used to do. Like I was a theater kid and I was a dancer, and I've completely kind of lost touch with those parts of myself and have become really like insular with my performances. So I'm really looking forward to getting out of that and hoping that it kind of ignites a new type of love for performing, because in the past few years I've sort of lost that. Honestly, I think a part of that is I went back to school. I went to Berkeley for 2 years, and that environment was hard. It was really hard. And I think it took away a little bit of my joy for performing, to be honest. Not anything against the school because I loved it and I learned a lot, but being judged in a performance aspect is like not what you want.
I've spoken to quite a few artists who went through Berkeley, and they said the same thing. They said that the experience that you get and the training that you get and the people that you're in contact with and the creatives, the other students especially that you were around is so great. But
Mhm.
then comes the other side of it, that scary dark hallway kind of like person looking at you as you perform. And that tends to just kind of be a little soul sucking, as one artist said, that you don't know how to take it because you think that you're doing well, but what you get back is not a lot, and you
No.
just don't know, right? uh
Yeah, totally.
it's that
And like
school of
if you're
fame.
playing, sorry, I'm cut you off.
No, I was just like what you used to see in the TV show, like School of Fame type thing, right?
Yeah. And like with a show, people are paying to come see you. So there's already this level of like people want me here, and that's not necessarily like the case in a judged atmosphere or like an adjudicated atmosphere, and I think it can really be intimidating. And I'm not 19 anymore, so I'd at least had the experience of already having like education and having a career. So it didn't crush me completely, but it definitely puts a bit of a damper on your confidence. And I think that I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to kind of getting that back with a new sort of live show, I
I
guess.
think you will find that. And I think that this music, especially Pity Party, like, listen, I could go on and on and on about Pity Party because I love it so much. And as I said, it's in my head all of the time. Um, but I really think that what you probably have and what's coming is that, you have music that, like you said, you don't often get a chance to have fun with.
Mm,
And there is a lot of fun. And I find there's a little cheek in the music, and
totally. Yeah.
total cheek. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I get that. And I get that sense of humor and a little bit of, there's a flirtiness with edge that's in
Mm.
it, and not edge for the sake of being edgy, but it's kind of like, yeah, there's some tongue-in-cheek kind of moments that come through the songs, the two singles that are out. So I'm excited by that because I think that when you and listening to you talk about the performance and thinking about the visual creative
Mhm.
about performance, I can imagine that there's a lot to play with there, and you probably have a ton of ideas just kind of always zooming around in your head of what that would look like, which probably both excites you and also frightens you because it's kind of like, oh my God, how do I pull this off? Um,
Yeah.
but I just think that it's there, and I'm super excited about it. It has the releases have definitely said to me, it's weird to be on the east coast of Canada because we have ingrained in ourselves, for, whether or not people realize it or not, when I listen to a lot of music, I feel like we've ingrained in ourselves that the sound that is coming out of the east coast is a very specific sound, and that it has to be that sound in order
Right.
for it to be accepted. But I'm hearing more artists these days really changing up the sound, and I like it because it's giving way more dimension to the artistry that's out here, because it's you're picking up on so many different things outside of what we're used to hearing. Do you feel, I guess, as an artist in the East Coast, you've had that Berkeley experience, but do you feel, not necessarily a pressure, but an expectation, I guess, of for releasing music or what it should sound like and how it should be presented?
Like for myself or
Hmm.
just being in this region?
Well, kind of both.
Um, I mean, I don't necessarily feel a regional pressure like that where I am dictates anything about what I release, but I definitely think, and I imagine most artists feel this way, that the judgment is from project to project, which I guess is sort of, I guess, nice in a way that you're competing with yourself. And I'm definitely influenced by everyone around me, and you can't ever keep up with art trends also. And I think that it's important to not try. um, but I definitely feel pressure to sort of do two things at the same time, which is keep whatever people already liked about me going, which I don't even know what that is, so that's impossible. But and do something new, so it's exciting. And those two things I think are always a little bit in conflict with each other. I will say that I think Nova Scotia has some of the most like talented songwriters and artists of, and I'm not just saying that because I've been here. I actually feel like when I went to Boston, and I mean, there's also so many talented artists and performers there, but the quality and the quantity of high quality artists here is kind of insane, and I feel really spoiled to have like, I'm not from here, but I, group my creative life grew up here, and I feel really spoiled by like the songwriters that I've been taught by and surrounded by, and the people that are making music here and releasing here. It's like it's really it keeps you going. Like it keeps you wanting to get better because everyone around me is getting better all the time. And I think that's so cool. I think that's really, really cool.
It sounds like you
Um,
found a strong support as well here.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I moved here and went and to go to Dal. And then from Dal, I went to NSCC, the Music Arts program, which is where I met Erin Costello, who produced my first two records. And I mean, she's amazing and has introduced me to so many other amazing people. And, her songs and her artistry are a great example of like just the insane amount of talent that's here, and then that spreads, and the bar is just constantly, I think, being raised, and also it's supportive, I think. I mean, there's always competition, but like I think for the most part artists here want other artists to be succeeding.
Hmm.
um, And that's nice. And that's why I keep coming back
It's
because it feels good.
Yeah, I mean that's good, and which is good to hear because I mean in so many other locations, and especially in large metropolises, the competition can be palpable.
Definitely.
So it's nice, and I mean I'm familiar with that here, but it's nice to know that the artists are feeling that way.
I
For
think so.
you as an artist, and where are you taking your inspiration from? What other artists are you taking your inspiration from? And who within the LGBTQ community have you heard that's gone, wow, like made you kind of like has really stood out to you?
Oh, that's a good question. I always feel like this question is so difficult because my musical inspiration is all over the place. And I always like if someone were to, when they ask for your elevator pitch or whatever, I feel like I have a really hard time with this question. And I mean, I think first of all, there are a lot of great songwriters that I have always looked up to. And then for me, like production and songwriting can be so separate. Um, oh, I don't know. Like, okay, when I think back to like my childhood, I think about like I listened to a lot of Metric. I still listen to a lot of Metric. But I also was listening to like Paul Simon and like John Mayer and like the Goo Goo Dolls
All good
and
influences. All.
yeah, but all over the place. And like Lady Gaga and Miley Cyrus and I feel like I'm really drawn to I don't know, powerful feeling music.
Mm.
And I think that that's something the LGBTQ community does extremely well. Like there's like a power behind, I mean, there's just something so like um
I, yeah.
empowering. Like listening to I've thought about this song so often like uh Call Your Girlfriend is a song that I have gone back to multiple times making this record as a reference to how I want to feel. Not even like the production necessarily, the songwriting, but like this is how I want to feel and how I want people to feel when they're listening to this song. And I don't know if that's like a queer experience necessarily because I think I'm really going off on a tangent, but sometimes when I think about like my own like experience as a queer person or my own queer experiences, I think this is just like an amplified emotional human experience. And then trying to take that and make it into a song that is universally felt is something I really wish I could do in the ways that some of my favorite artists have done. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
It
I
does.
think sometimes I'm just like feeling things so deeply, and the experience of feeling something really, really deeply in itself to me is queer. Like that is what draws me to like my favorite artists, I think. I don't know if that
It
I feel
does.
like I could really go off here, but
Listen,
that's how I
listen.
feel.
I think what you're hitting on makes a lot of sense. It's something that I always say, and it's the I guess that I'll call it discussion, for lack of a better word, because sometimes it's an argument,
Right.
that I have with people about why it's important that artists have the space to be able to be heard, and why queer people need to know they're queer artists, because for so many of us, we haven't grown up with music, especially if you're a music lover like me. You haven't grown up understanding or hearing yourself to the same extent in
Mhm.
music. You
Yeah.
can parallel it or whatnot, but when you
Right.
come along and somebody writes a song that like connects with you on all of the different levels of you as a human, uh,
Yeah.
it's like being seen for the first time in kind of a way, and being understood, and that is transformative, I think. um
Yeah.
especially when you're young, because we're already messed up as it is when we're young, that when it happens when you're young, you're kind of like, oh my God, yes, you get it. And that's why it resonates with you so much. And I think that I've had those conversations and those discussions, arguments about why representation is so important. And not coming from a genre standpoint, but coming from a human standpoint and being able to tell your story the way that you need to tell your story without any barriers, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily to be honest, I don't think it's necessarily fair for me to like speak to the wider like queer community because I've never really been like I've never when I was young and like in high school, I came from a really, really small town and I didn't, no one really spoke about their sexuality. And I didn't, but I also always knew that I wasn't, like, I would never consider myself straight just because I knew what my feelings were for other people from a really young age. And I felt okay with that. Like, I've never really, I've also never had to like deal, like, I'm a white person. Like, my life has been really great and my family is really supportive. And I live here where there's a huge queer community. And I've been really, really lucky to like have relationships that have been accepted by the place that I'm living. And so I feel like my experience as a queer person has been really, really positive. And I know that that's not like how it
Mm.
is for everyone. So I don't really feel like it's very fair for me to like speak to all experiences, but I would say that I feel really confident in speaking to my positive experience about how being queer and having relationships with all types of people has made my life like so beautiful. And that's the kind of thing that I look for in art is like queer joy because I think that that's what's made me a more confident person too is like loving who I want to love and saying what I want to say and seeing other people do that and making it really really no like normal, you
Right.
know, because I think that I mean I want everyone to be able to feel the way they do, the way that I do about my their identities. And so while I can't really speak to everyone's experiences, especially negative ones, I feel like it's important to have people speaking to the positive things. Um, and that's been my experience for the most part is really it's like colored my world in a really great way and I've been really lucky to be you know accepted for most of my life for who I am. um
No,
and I think that that needs to be reflected in art also.
I agree. And I think that I think what you just said, I think is really important. I think it's really helpful to a lot of people. I think that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that because it is. It's like these are the kind of conversations, and I think that it's not just about music, it's about a lot of things. But I think
Yeah.
that it is um a part of who you are and having I love the term queer joy. I love that. And I
Right.
think that finding that and being able to create that and put that into your art, I think is really important, both for you and for your fans.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's awesome. Um, which I mean, we just went places, and that was
Yeah.
awesome to
Sorry,
do.
I just
No, I think it's this is a space for you to be able to speak your mind and what you want to say, and I think that that is beautiful about it. So, um, with that in mind, though, going back to the music for a second, um, what are you most excited about for what's about to come?
um
Because there's a lot, as you've told us.
yeah. I think what am I most excited about? Oh, it's such a
We
yeah.
ask the
It's a good
hard-hitting
question.
questions here.
It's a good question again because I think already said this, but it's so easy to lose track of things and get kind of caught up in like the next thing's coming out and what did people think about it? And when I ask myself what I think about things, it's interesting how lost I get in that question. I think I'm most excited to yeah, I'm definitely excited for the performance side of things because I it feels like one unknown still, whereas the recordings are done, so I know what those sound like and I know how I feel about them. So I guess I'm excited for people to hear things, and I'm excited to see how I kind of grow through the performance side of this project. And I think I'm also excited to sort of show people all of like all of the things that I'm capable of, because I often sort of feel like putting myself in like just under the musician umbrella always makes me a little bit frustrated because I feel like I have so many things I want to do. And so the book and all these visuals and then the performance, I think it's going to be a more accurate representation of what I'm capable of. And I'm excited to do that. I'm like excited to start, accessing all of the parts of me that I've sort of put in a corner. Um,
Well,
yeah,
I'm excited for it as well because I can't wait to see you perform. I think it's going to be
I can't wait either.
I think it's going to be awesome. Um,
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me today and being so open and candid about things. And there's so much happening, and I'm so excited for you. Again, I just have this pity party is so in my head constantly. So if I start going into insomnia, I may have to start DMing you and being like, okay, you have to tell me how do I take the brakes off this song? Um, but it's fantastic, and I think that it's only going to be upwards from here for you.
That's so nice. That's really nice. I really appreciate all of the support you've been giving me, and I yeah, I'm like really touched by all of the positive feedback and everything that you've been sharing, and everything from the community that's like all this positive, all of the love is like really, it's great, and I'm really appreciative. So thank you for
Big
having me.
fan, big fan, I will
That's
say.
nice. Thank you.
All right. Well, for those of you who are watching, make sure that you jump on socials and you follow Leanne, HM Leanne. That's correct, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yes, HM Leanne. Two songs are out right now, Portuguese Tarts and Pity Party. You need to go and uh, I will give you the warning. Once you listen to Pity Party, it will be in your head forever and you will enjoy it being there. Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thank you. Thanks.